6 years ago, in 2018, 27% chose mental health as one of the biggest health problems. Putting it third, today that figure is 45% on average across 31 countries. Additionally, stress is ranked third, with 31% saying it's one of the biggest issues. So if you put these two figures together, 45% and 31%, that's 76%. "76% of all people across these 31 countries in this study report mental health issues to be the greatest health issue." A vast majority of people report mental health issues to be their biggest issue in life, basically. Because, health is wealth, and if this is your main concern, I have good news for you. I have really good news for you. All mental health issues, including stress, depression, anxiety, can be mitigated, if not completely dissipated, with a meditation practice for as little as a week. So stress, anxiety, and depression cannot exist in the present moment. And meditation is just that. It makes you more and more familiar with the present moment, with the so-called vertical dimension of life, with the timeless, the beingness. Stress exists because you want to be in the future, but you're not in the future. You want to get the job over with, but you're still working on the job. Anxiety comes from a fear about the future. Nothing bad has happened, and no one is sure if it will happen, but you're acting and feeling as if it has already happened. Depression is identifying with the negative thoughts inside of your head, as well as with your past. Dwelling on past regrets, dwelling on the things that you did wrong, so to say, leads to depression. But if you just focus on this very moment right here, none of that can exist. And I feel like I've said what I wanted to say about these topics. About depression, about anxiety. Watch my previous videos if you're interested in learning more about these things. Or send me an email if you want some personalized coaching. But as far as these videos goes, there's not really much I can add to it. But you have two choices, basically. Either you wait for the suffering to become so severe that it will push you forcefully into taking actions out of it. And this can go terribly wrong because the so-called mental health system is going to save you, stuff you with a bunch of pills, and then things are only going downwards. Okay, that is not the solution. And the other option is that you foresee the consequences of not acting on these signposts, and you begin to meditate early, before things have turned into serious issues. And my meditation teacher used to say that it's like drops of water in a bucket. And you might not need that today or tomorrow or next week, but one day you will need it. So you're filling up the bucket, and you do so that when life gives you very big challenges, you will have an accumulated amount of practice in meditation to overcome those challenges. But the thing is, life is not supposed to be about suffering. Life can be really good. Because as we can see here, 76%, at least 76% of the problems in this world can be completely mitigated. Now, if you could go to your local gas station and there was a pill with no side effects that said this will reduce your problems in life by 76%. This will make you 76% lighter. That would be a very good pill, right? That would be an awesome pill. At least 76%. Because the thing is, most of these other issues, such as drug abuse, that 20% of people report as the number one issue, that is also to do with mental health issues. Obesity, for the most part, is also just the same as drug abuse. It comes from poor mental health. We have studies showing that people who have good mental health, they are less prone to overeating, right? And we have rat studies that show the same thing. When we have rats that are thriving in their communities and they're playing with other rats and everything is fun, they don't drink the cocaine water anymore, or the sugar water, or whatever they're trying to give them. But the rats that are feeling lonely, they do. To a large extent, like physiological health issues can also stem from these things, such as stress and mental health, and that's why we say that's at least 95%. You know, it's an even higher number. 95% of your problems in life can be dissipated through meditation. Almost everything you consider a problem in your life is just caused by you not meditating. Another interesting insight here is that when we had the pandemic, it was reported as the highest health concern. At over 70% of people in these 31 countries said it was the biggest. Then as that was dropping down, mental health issues were reported to go up. Stress started going up. Obesity started going up. Drug abuse started going up. So if we look even deeper at these numbers, we can see that it's not even about these different categories of health issues specifically. It's more likely that the human condition is always problematic, and we just change the labels that we use to describe these problems. They call it the long-term effects on public health. And they are referring to the pandemic, as if that is to blame for people's mental health issues today. But if we look at the numbers from 2018, before the pandemic, mental health issues was reported even higher. Mental health issues were reported at 50% or more. Obesity was higher. Obesity is probably the highest today, but it wasn't reported as a big problem. But before the pandemic, it was reported as a bigger problem than it is today, despite the fact that obesity is going up. Drug abuse was reported as a bigger issue. All these issues were reported as bigger issues before the COVID. Then COVID came, then COVID became the biggest issue. Now that COVID is over, all these different categories are now rising back up to pre-pandemic levels. But the good thing is that we can change all that. We can probably remove this whole list of problems right here by simply adopting meditation. Now, obviously, it's not gonna magically take away physiological health issues from one day to another, but what it can do quite magically is to remove the identification with the suffering. I think someone said that it's like half of you really wants to get there, right? Like as in get into this transcendental state, and the other half has to just be completely nonchalant about it and not caring at all if it happens or not. And you have to do both at the same time, and that is the key to make it work long term. And so it's not going to be perfect. It's going to take a lot of practice for this to work. And if there is any dogma that I would ascribe to, it would be the 4 agreements. Always do your best is obviously the most important. Always do your best. So it's not about being perfect. It's just about doing your best. And on different days, this means different things, right? If your health is not the best, then doing your best means something else than when your health is, all good and well. And then the second agreement is to never take things personally. Now, this speaks directly to this dynamic of overcoming the ego, right? So if something bad happens and your mind starts ruminating about these bad events or the suffering you're feeling internally, don't take that personally. Say to yourself, you're not your suffering, you're not your mind. Keep saying it on repeat until you get it, right? Don't take it personally. When people insult you, realize that's not personal either. It's their pain bodies, it's their egos acting up. It's not who they are. When they're laying in their bed at night, they regret doing those things, right? They can't help it. So it's not who they really are. Now, the third agreement is to be impeccable with your words. And this is obviously something that can give you a lot of worldly success in life if you stick to it. If you always do what you're gonna say that you're gonna do, and you respect your own words, as in always aspiring to be as honest as possible, and use your words as carefully as possible to not waste words on things that are unnecessary to say, if you're impeccable with your word, you're going to create this consistency, and it's going to be very easy for you to detect when exactly your ego is stepping into your way. Because if there's one thing the ego does not like, it's overall consistency, right? So for example, we can let go of certain substances, and then once we find ourselves gravitating towards these substances, well, then we know for sure that this ego entity is trying to force its way back into our lives. The fourth agreement is to never make assumptions about anything. Again, this is another nice little precept that helps you in order to stay present. Because if there's one thing the mind loves, it's to make assumptions about other people, about reality, about how things should play out, about what you want, about what you don't want. All the time the mind just makes assumptions. But what if you didn't, right? And a practical example of this is obviously when we're talking to other human beings. What happens if we don't make any assumptions? You know, try it for yourself. It's actually very, 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 very interesting. And it can open a lot of doors for you if you just follow that one rule. Never make assumptions. Never make assumptions about what people think. Never make assumptions about what people believe. Never make assumptions about people's levels of consciousness, right? Never make assumptions about anything really to do with people. Never assume that anyone is good. Never assume that anyone is bad. Don't assume anything. Just every time you see your mind wanting to assume something, just return to the present moment. Just return into your own being. And just enjoy it. Just enjoy being in yourself. You don't need anything else but that. You know, and for me, it's interesting to look at these numbers too, because obviously this was done with some online questionnaire. People might be more vulnerable, more comfortable answering such questions. But when you're asking people, just like in daily life, like, how are you? Every time you say, how are you to someone, no one is ever saying, yeah, I feel like mental health issues are really devastating these days. No, they say, I'm good. I'm fine. I'm all right. Thank you. I'm good. How are you? And that can be a little bit confusing, right? It can be a little bit confusing. It's almost like that Instagram filter reality where we present ourselves in the best way possible online. It's almost as if we've always been doing that, but we've been doing that in our daily chit chat, in our daily small talk, in our daily conversations, even with people who we assume are really close to us. Our loved ones, they do the same thing. You ask them, how are you? They say, I'm good. Well, the problem is that the mind in its default state is just comparing its own reality to that of the previous days, right? So when people say they are good, what they are really saying is that I feel more or less the same I felt yesterday and the day before that. But that does not mean that they are really good. Like, really being good is like actually feeling enthusiastic about life. Now that is good. That is what you want to be feeling. You actually want to be feeling enthusiastic about life. And sometimes, unfortunately, I feel like that I have to downplay it a little bit. Right? Because when I go out and I tell people, you know, and people ask me, how do you feel? And I'm like, I feel fucking great. I feel fucking fantastic. When I say that, I don't know, it feels like the energy shifts a little bit. You know, so I tend to do the same thing. I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. You know, try to downplay it a little bit. So we're all doing that. We're all doing that, so it's hard to figure out what is really going on. However, alongside looking at the global picture, we should also note the big differences in attitudes between countries and genders. In all but 2 countries, India and Thailand, women are more likely to choose mental health as a health concern. So women choose mental health to a larger extent than men. That's interesting. And the thing is, women have a much better understanding of their own feelings. Like, they're better at observing their own feelings and emotions. And that is giving more awareness, right? It's creating more awareness of yourself. It allows you to identify the real problem. So I think this is to say that women are really seeing this whole ego issue for what it really is to a higher extent than men. But it's also an invitation for men out there to not be that concerned with your thinking, but look at the emotional body inside of you. Look at the energetic field inside of you. What is that? Yeah, investigate that, explore it, observe it, and realize that that is where all the negative thinking is coming from. It's not the other way around. And if you can just observe that, it dissipates, and with that, the thoughts go away. Now a new energetic field enters your body, maybe that of courage, or that of reasoning, or that of acceptance, or that of love. And now notice how all the thoughts change as well, in congruence to this energetic field. In this year's survey, we asked people to assess how likely they were to get cancer in their country, as well as how widespread obesity is. We found that people were better at understanding their obesity risk than their cancer risk, with many countries seeing a fall in cancer screenings during the pandemic, and now some cancers affecting more younger people than in the past. It is important for people to be able to understand what risk they have of getting the disease. People's perception to cancer rates don't match reality. Are people in your country more, less, or neither more nor less likely to get cancer in your country than in any other comparably developed country? So for some reason in Hungary, almost 50% of people think that people in their country are more likely to get cancer than in any other developed country. That's interesting. But I have no idea how I can use these numbers to say anything meaningful. Spain is on the bottom, with only 7% saying it's more likely in their country than other countries. Some of this could be to do with grammar and language. Constructing this sentence, more or less, neither more nor less, in different languages might come off different. And if you look at the less likely, it's pretty low across the whole list. That's interesting. The blue colors. So what that shows us is that people in general are pessimistic about their health and their country's ability to handle health. If you have the choice to be either optimistic or pessimistic, should you choose optimism, or should you stay undecided between these two, and answer that you don't know, as between 10 to 35% of people have done. In Argentina, actually more than a third of people said, I don't know the answer to this question. Now, this is always a good answer in life. I don't know. You will never go wrong with this answer. And I think that's okay. That's okay to not know. Because when it comes to law of attraction and choosing negative or positive beliefs about these things, such as your health, what is more important than what you think about these things is what you feel, right? So feeling a high vibrational energy inside of you, that is going to be the best thing you can do to give your body the best possible health, right? Obviously, a lot of it is out of our control, but as far as what we can control our state, we can control our energetic field, and we can raise the vibration of it to a point where we feel really good, right? Meaning we're absent of stress, we're absent of anxiety, we're absent of depression, we're absent of increased cortisol levels, we're absent of all these triggers that can lead to bad health. So that is more important than whether you think it's a positive, a negative outcome, or if you don't know what the outcome is. Now, but if you do have the choice to either think that things are gonna be good or if they're gonna be not so good, why wouldn't you believe that they are gonna play out good? What do you have to lose? I mean, if you're wrong, and then you find out too late and it doesn't matter anyway. And if you're right, then all power to you. Good job. Nothing changes. And you might feel more grounded in that belief that everything is going to be okay. And the mind is very powerful. We can program our lives, essentially, just by affirming certain thoughts to ourselves, to our subconscious, to our higher selves. And it all starts downstream from your thinking and the words you use. Just by using positive words such as, I am healthy, well, now you've created a job for your subconscious mind, for the workforce of your internal agency. And now they have to figure out the details, the neurons, the higher intelligence. What does it mean to be healthy? Now suddenly you start making better health choices for yourself. You start researching more, right? You maybe don't overeat that much. You become more aware of what different foods do to you. And it all started with you just saying, I am healthy, right? So affirming these simple positive beliefs can cascade into manifesting in our lives naturally. Now suddenly we find ourselves in a different reality altogether. We might find ourselves in a different financial situation than we were a year ago, or with better health than we had a year ago, and we don't really know how we got here. But then we remember, okay, yeah, so I did that affirmation, where I said these positive things again and again, and my subconscious picked that up. The higher intelligence got the message. And since then, my actions have actually changed. I have become a different person because of that affirmation. So the power of the mind is incredible. Now, why do I say that it sort of doesn't really matter? Well, the thing is, if you raise your level of consciousness, if you just let go of the mind, the chatter, the old self, the negativity, what tends to happen is you get the same insight that I just gave you on your own. The moment you become aware, the moment your consciousness increases, your thoughts get a more positive charge. If something good happens in your life, something really good and something really unexpected, someone does something to you that you're really grateful for, you would be grateful, right? You would be grateful. You wouldn't have to force yourself to be grateful. You would just be grateful. Now, it's a bit like that when our levels of consciousness increase. We start feeling really good about ourselves. We feel at peace. And now what happens when your energetic field is that of peace and gratitude? It means that your thoughts also become that of peace and gratitude. Now you find yourself being grateful for the health that you do have, which is a very positive charge, right? And that creates more of the same, right? The things we're grateful for, we tend to get more of. Across 31 countries, people's perceptions of the current and future quality of their healthcare system remain positive, albeit faltering somewhat. This year, 44% say that quality of their country's healthcare system is either very good or good, versus 21% who say it's poor. During the pandemic, there was an increase in satisfaction with the healthcare people had access to. And this peaked in 2021 when 53% described that care as good. Now that figure has fallen and returned to the level it was before. I feel like this speaks to the point before that it's not COVID, it's not obesity, it's not one of these particular categories that we're actually concerned about as people on behalf of our own health and our country's health. It is just this underlying issue that is the root of all these issues. And all we have to do is just address that one thing. The old self that always projects itself into the future, into the past, into identification with the suffering in the present. And if we let go of that, or rather we just stay consistent with being in the present moment with our meditation practice, all these problems, 95% of these problems will go away. So thanks for watching, and until next time.